Everyone fell silent as Pierce strutted into the break room. 12 exhausted faces turned toward him, cups of lukewarm coffee abandoned mid-sip. His designer watch gleamed under the lights as he adjusted his tie with manicured fingers. "I've assessed last quarter's performance," he announced, scanning our tired eyes without a hint of empathy. "The numbers speak for themselves. Disappointing doesn't begin to cover it." My stomach clenched. Our team had warned him repeatedly about his approach. We'd stayed late countless nights trying to salvage what we could of his misguided strategy. "This is what happens when you don't meet standards," Pierce continued, his voice dripping with condescension. "Starting tomorrow, everyone will work mandatory weekend shifts until we recover from this setback. 8 to 6, both Saturday and Sunday." Audible gasps filled the room. Lena, who'd already canceled her son's birthday celebration twice this month, bit her lip hard. Andre, whose mother was in hospice care, stared at the floor. Next to me, Keiko's hands trembled so badly she had to set down her mug. "But sir," I finally spoke up, "the quarterly loss directly resulted from inadequate execution." Pierce cut me off, his smile never reaching his eyes. "I've already explained the situation to the executive committee. They support my corrective measures fully." He was lying. He'd blamed us for his catastrophic decisions. "Any other questions?" His tone made it clear there should be none. The silence felt suffocating. "Excellent. I expect everyone bright and early tomorrow. Bring your best attitudes." He turned to leave, then paused. "Oh, and Alma? I'll need comprehensive analytics on everyone's weekend productivity. That's your responsibility now." The door swung shut behind him. Someone started crying softly. I stood frozen, rage burning through me like acid. 6 months of Pierce's leadership had destroyed everything we'd built. His MBA theories and buzzword strategies had alienated our biggest clients. His arrogance had crushed morale. And now, after his showcase project had lost the company millions, he was punishing us. Worse, he wanted me to help him do it. Lena touched my arm. "What do we do?" "Alma, 12 years at this company, 3 years leading this team, countless nights sacrificed, all our warnings ignored, all our expertise dismissed." Something broke inside me at that moment, a boundary I'd never crossed before. Looking at my devastated team, people with children, aging parents, health issues, lives outside these walls, I made a decision. "We show up tomorrow," I said quietly. "We do exactly what he asks." "That's it?" Andre asked, desperation edging his voice. "No," I answered, "a plan already forming. That's just where we start." Before we continue this journey together, I want to thank you for giving this story your attention. If you're enjoying it so far, please hit that like button and subscribe to stay updated with more corporate drama stories like this one. Your comments mean everything. Let me know if you've ever experienced a toxic boss like Pierce. Now, let's get back to our story. My name is Alma Wright. For 12 years, I built my career at the company, rising from entry-level analyst to senior team leader, through determination and an uncanny ability to predict market trends. My colleagues describe me as methodical, patient, and fiercely protective of my team. I'm the person who remembers everyone's work anniversary with a handwritten note. I'm also the person who keeps meticulous notes on everything, which is exactly why Pierce should have never crossed me. The weekend shifts were brutal. Saturday morning, I arrived to find my team already at their desks, eyes shadowed from lack of sleep. No one complained, but the atmosphere felt like a funeral. As they worked, I began my own project. Not the punishment task Pierce had assigned, but something entirely different. 6 months earlier, Pierce had arrived with his designer suits and Harvard connections. The executive committee introduced him as a change agent, someone to shake things up. His first week, he called a team meeting. "Everything you've been doing is outdated," he announced, clicking through a presentation filled with colorful graphs. "Your approach is too conservative. Risk aversion is killing innovation." I raised my hand. "Our forecasting model has been accurate within 2% for 5 consecutive years. The conservative approach protects us from market volatility." Pierce smiled condescendingly. "That thinking is exactly why this department needs fresh leadership." That afternoon, he discarded our quarterly strategy and implemented his own. When I expressed concerns about regulatory compliance, he dismissed them as bureaucratic thinking. When our technical team questioned his assumptions, he accused them of resistance to change. Within weeks, his changes caused problems. Client complaints increased. Warning signs flashed in our data. In response, Pierce doubled down, pushing his agenda harder. I began keeping notes, not just meeting minutes or project updates, but detailed records of every decision, every warning ignored, every shortcut taken. I preserved original communications before he altered them to shift blame. I tracked client feedback that never made it into official reports. For 6 months, I watched him destroy everything we'd built while claiming brilliance. I documented as his showcase project, the one he'd staked his reputation on, showed clear signs of failure. I collected statements from departing clients explaining exactly why they were leaving. And now, alone in the office that Saturday, I assembled it all. By Sunday evening, I had created a comprehensive report, 20 pages of irrefutable facts, showing precisely how Pierce's decisions had directly caused the catastrophic quarterly loss. I included financial projections demonstrating how his continued leadership would bankrupt our division within 18 months. Every claim was supported by data. Every conclusion was inescapable. I placed it in a simple black binder with a note, "For Monday's executive committee meeting." At 9:30 p.m., I entered his empty office and left it centered on his desk. Then I went home and, for the first time in weeks, slept deeply. Monday morning arrived with a strange calm. I dressed carefully in my best outfit, applied minimal makeup, and arrived early. The executive committee meeting was scheduled for 10 a.m. I knew Pierce's habits by now. He never prepared in advance, preferring to wing it with confidence rather than substance. Sure enough, at 9:45, I watched through the glass wall of his office as he arrived, noticed the binder, and tucked it under his arm without opening it. He trusted it contained whatever he'd ordered me to prepare. His arrogance would be his undoing. The meeting room filled with department heads, including me. Pierce arrived last, smiling confidently as he took his place at the table. The CEO nodded a greeting as the projection screen came to life, showing several unfamiliar faces. "The board members have joined us virtually today," the CEO explained. "They're particularly interested in understanding last quarter's performance issues." Pierce's smile faltered momentarily before he recovered. Perfect timing. "I have a comprehensive analysis that will address all concerns." He hadn't even looked at the binder. My heart raced as he opened it, scanning the first page with casual confidence that transformed into confusion, then alarm. "Pierce?" prompted the CEO. "We're waiting." His eyes met mine across the room, a flash of panic crossing his face as he realized what I'd done. He was trapped, too late to claim he hadn't reviewed the material, too public a setting to back down. "Yes, of course," he managed. "Let me walk you through this analysis." What followed was excruciating to watch. Page by page, Pierce stumbled through my report, essentially confessing to every mistake he'd made. With each turn of a page, his voice grew more strained. Board members asked increasingly pointed questions he couldn't answer. The CEO's expression hardened. When he finished, silence filled the room. "This is concerning," said one board member finally. "You've essentially admitted to bypassing standard protocols, ignoring risk assessments, and misrepresenting outcomes." Pierce's face had gone pale. "I think there's been a misunderstanding about the context of—" "The context seems quite clear," interrupted the CEO. "Pierce, please wait outside while we discuss this matter privately. Alma, since you compiled this report, please stay." As Pierce passed my chair, he leaned down and whispered, voice trembling with rage, "You've made the biggest mistake of your life. When this is over, I'll destroy you." I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Because what Pierce didn't know was that his whispered threat wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. The boardroom door closed behind Pierce, leaving me facing the executive committee and virtual board members alone. Their faces ranged from stunned to furious. "Alma," the CEO began, "how long have you been gathering this information?" "Since Pierce arrived 6 months ago," I answered truthfully. Initially, I kept notes to help my team adapt to his leadership style. But when warning signs appeared and were ignored, I began tracking the consequences more systematically. A board member leaned forward on the video screen. "And you compiled this specifically for today's meeting?" I did. "My team is suffering the consequences of decisions they warned against." I felt the committee needed accurate information. For the next 40 minutes, they questioned me about specific details in the report. I answered calmly, providing context where needed. I wasn't performing. I was simply stating facts I'd lived through. Thank you for your candor, the CEO finally said. Please wait outside with Pierce. In the hallway, Pierce paced like a caged animal. When he saw me, his eyes narrowed to slits. You planted that file, he hissed. You set me up. I kept my voice level. Every word in that report came from you. Every decision documented was yours. Every consequence predicted was warned about in advance. You've worked here, what, 3 years? I've been in this industry for 15. When this blows over, 12 years, I corrected. I've been with this company for 12 years. You'd know that if you'd ever bothered to learn anything about your team. Before he could respond, the boardroom door opened. The CEO's assistant motioned us back inside. The atmosphere had shifted. The CEO stood at the head of the table, hands clasped before him. Pierce, he began without preamble. Your leadership decisions have cost us millions in revenue and 3 major clients. More concerning is your pattern of bypassing protocols and shifting blame to your team. Pierce straightened. Sir, I can explain. I've heard enough explanations today. The CEO cut him off. We're placing you on administrative leave pending further review. Please clear your desk by end of day. Pierce's jaw dropped. You can't be serious. Over 1 bad quarter? Over systematic mismanagement and creating a toxic work environment, corrected the CEO. Security will accompany you to gather your belongings. As reality sank in, Pierce's shock transformed to rage. He spun toward me. You orchestrated this. You undermined me from day one. I said nothing. I didn't need to defend myself against the truth. The CEO stepped between us. That's enough. Alma, please stay. We have more to discuss. As security personnel appeared in the doorway, Pierce leaned close to me one last time. This isn't over, he whispered. Not by a long shot. I believed him. After Pierce left, the CEO asked me to take temporary leadership of the department while they searched for a replacement. I agreed, relieved my team would no longer suffer under Pierce's mismanagement. That evening, I called an emergency department meeting to share the news. The relief on my colleagues' faces was palpable. So the weekend shifts are canceled? Asked Andre hopefully. Effective immediately, I confirmed. And everyone's getting comp time for the hours worked. The cheers that erupted brought tears to my eyes. For a moment, it felt like victory. I should have known better. 3 days later, rumors began circulating. Lena pulled me aside after lunch. Concern etched on her face. Alma, people are saying weird things. That you set Pierce up. That you manipulated data to make him look bad. What? That's ridiculous. The report contained only factual information. I know that, Lena assured me. But someone's pushing a different narrative. By Friday, the whispers had grown louder. Executives who previously supported me now avoided eye contact in hallways. My calls to the CEO went unreturned. Then Keiko discovered something alarming. Alma, she said, closing my office door behind her. Pierce has been contacting clients. He's telling them you fabricated evidence against him because of a personal vendetta. That's absurd, I replied. The evidence speaks for itself. There's more, Keiko continued, voice dropping. He apparently played golf with 2 board members last weekend, and his cousin works in HR. A cold feeling settled in my stomach. I'd underestimated Pierce's connections. Monday morning, exactly 1 week after Pierce's removal, I arrived to find the CEO waiting in my office. We need to talk, he said grimly. He closed the door and got straight to the point. Serious concerns have been raised about your methods, Alma. Multiple sources suggest your report contained misleading information designed to target Pierce unfairly. That's completely false, I protested. Every piece of data can be verified. End quote. Nevertheless, we're conducting a full investigation. In the meantime, we're bringing in an interim director to oversee the department. You're removing me? I asked, disbelief coloring my voice. Temporarily, he emphasized, until this matter is resolved. After the CEO left, I sat stunned at my desk. Pierce was fighting back, leveraging his connections to rewrite history. Worse, it was working. By afternoon, a company-wide email announced my voluntary step back from leadership and introduced the interim director, Maxwell Reed, who happened to be Pierce's former colleague from business school. This isn't right, Andre said when he burst into my office after reading the email. We all know what Pierce did. Knowing and proving are different things, I replied, struggling to maintain composure. And Pierce has powerful friends. So what do we do? Asked Lena, who had joined Andre. Just let him get away with it? I considered my options carefully. Fighting back publicly would play into Pierce's narrative about my vendetta. Resigning would be admitting guilt. Neither was acceptable. We wait, I decided. The next morning, Maxwell Reed called me into his office, my former office, now stripped of personal touches and rearranged to his preference. Alma, he greeted without warmth. I'll be direct. The investigation isn't looking favorable for you. The investigation barely started, I pointed out. Several witnesses have come forward, describing your apparent obsession with undermining Pierce. Witnesses? Who? Maxwell shrugged. That information is confidential, but the pattern they describe is concerning. It was happening faster than I'd anticipated. Pierce wasn't just defending himself. He was systematically destroying my credibility. I have 12 years of outstanding performance reviews, I reminded him. My team has the highest satisfaction scores in the company. Past performance doesn't excuse current misconduct, Maxwell replied smoothly. I'm trying to help you, Alma. Consider taking voluntary leave while this plays out. It would look better than termination. The threat hung in the air between us. I need time to consider my options, I said finally. Of course, Maxwell nodded. You have until tomorrow. As I walked back to my downgraded cubicle, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Coffee? Outside the building. 15 minutes. Come alone. I hesitated, then grabbed my jacket and headed to the small cafe across the street. At a corner table sat a woman I recognized immediately. Valeria, the CEO's executive assistant. Thank you for coming, she said as I sat down. I can't be seen talking to you inside. What's this about? Valeria leaned forward. You're being set up. Pierce has been working behind the scenes since the moment he left. He's convinced several board members that you manipulated data to make him look bad. But that's not true, I protested. Everything in my report is verifiable. Truth doesn't always win, Alma. Pierce is claiming you selectively presented information while hiding context that would have exonerated him. And people are believing it because he's charming and connected. My coffee sat untouched as dread settled over me. Why are you telling me this? Valeria hesitated. Because I've seen this before. 3 years ago, at his previous company, a talented director raised concerns about his methods. 2 weeks later, she was gone and he was promoted. I absorbed this information slowly. You're saying he's done this before? Multiple times. It's his pattern. Anyone who challenges him gets systematically discredited. If you know this, why not tell the CEO? I tried, Valeria admitted, but Pierce plays golf with him every Sunday. Their wives are in the same book club. The CEO wants to believe Pierce. I stared into my cooling coffee. So, I'm finished here. Probably, Valeria acknowledged. Unless what? Her eyes met mine. Unless you have something more. Something Pierce doesn't know about. On my walk back to the office, Valeria's words echoed in my head. Something more. Something Pierce doesn't know about. Did I have something more? Pierce believed he understood the extent of my documentation, the report I'd compiled for the executive committee. He was systematically dismantling my credibility, confident he knew what weapons I possessed. But Pierce had made a fundamental error in judgment from day one, underestimating me. Back at my desk, I found an email from HR requesting my presence at a meeting tomorrow morning. The subject line read, "Disciplinary review." They were moving fast, too fast for a fair investigation. Pierce's influence was accelerating the process. As my team members cast worried glances in my direction, I made my decision. Opening my personal email, I composed a message to an address I hadn't used in years. The subject line read simply, "Now." The response came within minutes. Garden bench, 8 p.m. At precisely 8 p.m., I sat on the designated bench in the public garden 3 blocks from our office building. The spring evening was cool, cherry blossoms swirling in the gentle breeze. I appeared to be checking emails on my phone when someone sat beside me. "You look terrible," said a familiar voice. I turned to face Janet, former chief risk officer who had resigned 2 years ago after raising concerns about executive practices. "Thanks for coming," I said. "When you contacted me, I assumed it was about Pierce," she replied. "He's why I left, you know, though the official story was pursuing other opportunities. I need your help," I told her. "Pierce is doing to me what he did to you." Janet's expression hardened. "I've been waiting for this day. Tell me everything." As darkness fell around us, I explained my situation in detail. When I finished, Janet was silent for a long moment. You know what the worst part is? She finally said. He'll do this again and again. Different companies, different victims, same playbook. Unless someone stops him, I replied. Janet studied my face carefully. You have a plan. It wasn't a question. I might, I admitted, but I need information only you would have. What exactly are you planning, Alma? Something more, I answered, echoing Valeria's words. Something he won't see coming. Janet hesitated, then nodded slowly. I'm in, but be careful. Pierce doesn't just bend rules. He breaks people who get in his way. I'm already broken, I said quietly. Now I'm becoming dangerous. As we parted ways, my phone buzzed with another message. The HR meeting had been moved up to 8 a.m. They weren't even trying to disguise their intentions anymore. Tomorrow would determine everything. Pierce thought he was closing in for the kill. He had no idea what was waiting for him. The HR meeting room felt claustrophobic despite its size. On one side of the table sat 3 people: Maxwell, the HR director, Pierce's cousin's boss, and a company lawyer I'd never met. I sat alone on the other side, a symbolic division that wasn't lost on me. Alma, the HR director began, her voice professionally detached. We've conducted a preliminary investigation into serious allegations regarding your conduct. What allegations specifically? I asked, though I already knew. Falsification of company data, targeted harassment of management, and creating a hostile work environment, the lawyer interjected. Very serious charges. Maxwell slid a document across the table. This outlines the company's willingness to provide 2 weeks severance in exchange for your immediate resignation and an NDA regarding all parties involved. I didn't touch the paper. So, I'm being fired based on an investigation that never included my testimony? We're offering you an opportunity to resign voluntarily, corrected the HR director. The alternative would be termination for cause, which would appear on your employment record. The message was clear. Leave quietly or be pushed out loudly. They expected me to take the deal out of self-preservation. I'd like to review this with my attorney before responding, I said, finally picking up the document. The lawyer's eyes narrowed. The offer expires at close of business today. Then I'd better hurry, I replied, rising from my chair. As I walked back to my desk, stunned colleagues watched in silence. News traveled fast. Lena approached, tears in her eyes. They can't do this to you, she whispered fiercely. It's happening, I told her. By noon, I'd cleared personal items from my desk into a cardboard box, the universal symbol of corporate disgrace. Maxwell watched from across the floor, ensuring I didn't take anything that wasn't mine. The humiliation was intentional, a public demonstration of what happens to troublemakers. At 4:30 p.m., I carried my box to HR with the severance agreement unsigned. I can't accept these terms, I informed the HR director. She sighed, unsurprised. Then effective immediately. Your employment is terminated for cause. Security will escort you out. The walk of shame through the open office felt eternal. Former teammates averted their eyes, afraid association with me might contaminate them. Only Keiko, Andre, and Lena stood as I passed, a small gesture of solidarity that brought tears to my eyes. At the elevator, the security guard at least had the decency to look uncomfortable with his assignment. I'm sorry, Alma, he murmured as the doors closed. Outside, the spring air felt different against my skin. For 12 years, I'd entered this building with purpose. Now I was barred from it, my reputation in tatters. My phone buzzed with a text from Lena. Pierce is coming back Monday. Maxwell just announced it. Of course he was. The puppet master, returning to reclaim his stage once the troublemaker had been removed. His victory was complete, or so he thought. 3 days later, Pierce walked triumphantly through the office doors, designer suit impeccable as always. Maxwell had arranged a welcome-back breakfast spread in the conference room. As Pierce accepted congratulations from sycophants, he looked exactly like what he believed himself to be, untouchable. That morning, I sat in a different office across town, watching the clock tick toward 9 a.m. Beside me, Janet reviewed documents spread across a conference table. Across from us sat 3 people: a representative from the Industry Regulatory Commission, a reporter from the Wall Street Journal, and a senior partner from the company's largest institutional investor. Are you absolutely certain about doing this? Janet asked me quietly. More certain than I've ever been, I replied. At exactly 9 a.m., my phone rang. I answered and put it on speaker. Good morning, Alma, came Valeria's voice. The quarterly board meeting just began. You're on speaker with the complete board, the executive committee, and Mr. Pierce. A moment of confused silence followed. Then the CEO's voice. Valeria, what is the meaning of this? Miss Wright is no longer with the company. I'm aware, sir, Valeria replied calmly, but the board should hear what she has to say before proceeding further. I've taken the liberty of adding this call to the official minutes. Pierce's voice cut through, smooth as ever. This is highly inappropriate. This former employee was terminated for cause after fabricating. Actually, I interrupted, I was terminated for telling the truth, a pattern I'm continuing today. I nodded to the regulatory representative, who leaned toward the phone. This is Commissioner Daniels from the Industry Regulatory Authority. Based on documentation provided by Miss Wright and corroborated by Janet Foster, former Chief Risk Officer, we've opened a formal investigation into multiple compliance violations spanning the past 4 years. Before anyone could respond, the investor representative spoke next. Martin Hamilton, representing Northridge Capital Partners. As your largest institutional investor, we're deeply concerned about governance issues revealed in Miss Wright's documentation. Our preliminary review suggests catastrophic oversight failures by this board. Finally, the reporter introduced herself. Emma Chen, from the Wall Street Journal. I've spent 3 days verifying Miss Wright's extensive documentation across 3 companies. My article on this pattern of corporate malfeasance runs tomorrow, unless the board takes immediate corrective action. The silence on the other end was deafening. What exactly are you alleging? The CEO finally asked, his voice notably less confident. Not alleging, proving. I corrected. Pierce has a consistent pattern across 3 companies. He arrives, dismantles functioning systems, pushes through non-compliant initiatives, blocks risk warnings, then systematically destroys anyone who questions him. When his projects inevitably fail, he manufactures evidence against others. That's absurd, Pierce sputtered. This is clearly a vindictive. Janet, I interrupted. How many others? Janet leaned forward. 7 former employees across 2 previous companies, all terminated after raising concerns about Pierce's methods, all forced to sign NDAs. I've provided sworn statements from 5, who've agreed to break silence despite legal risks. Further, I continued, I've documented 16 specific regulatory violations from the past 6 months alone. 3 violations Pierce explicitly ordered after being warned of legal consequences. I paused to let this sink in. The complete documentation has been provided to all parties on this call. It includes internal communications, meeting recordings where compliance concerns were raised and dismissed, client testimonials about why they departed, and detailed financial analysis of resulting damages. And most damning, added Janet, identical patterns at his previous employers, which I've independently verified. The reporter spoke again. To be clear, I've confirmed Pierce received separation agreements at 2 previous companies following internal investigations that were buried. His current employment contract failed to disclose these separations. This is outrageous, Pierce protested, but his voice had lost its authoritative edge. These are baseless accusations from disgruntled. The documentation speaks for itself, I cut in. Every claim is supported by multiple evidence sources. None of it is fabricated, unlike the evidence used to terminate me. Another long silence followed. What do you want? The CEO finally asked. Full reinstatement with cleared record and back pay, I stated firmly. Compensation for emotional distress, public acknowledgement of wrongful termination, and most importantly, a complete board-led investigation into how Pierce manipulated company processes to punish those who raised legitimate concerns. And if we refuse? Asked a board member. Then Commissioner Daniels proceeds with regulatory action. Mr. Hamilton's firm reconsiders its investment position, and Ms. Chen's article runs unedited. I answered simply. What followed was predictable. Pierce exploded in denials. Board members whispered urgently. The CEO attempted damage control, but the leverage had shifted irrevocably. We'll need to discuss this privately, the CEO finally said. Of course, I replied. You have until 5 p.m. today to respond. After the call ended, Janet squeezed my hand. Well done. It's not over yet, I cautioned, but we both knew it was. The evidence was overwhelming, verified by multiple independent sources. Pierce had been meticulous in cultivating influence, but had never imagined someone might be equally meticulous in documenting his actions. The call came at 4:45 p.m. The board had voted for an independent investigation, Pierce was suspended pending results. I would be fully reinstated with a public apology. Maxwell would also be replaced. We deeply regret how this situation was handled, the CEO told me, humility now evident in his voice. Your dedication to ethical standards should have been celebrated, not punished. When I returned to the office Monday morning, Pierce's office was already empty. He hadn't even been allowed to clear it himself. The message was unmistakable. My team greeted me with tearful hugs and quiet congratulations. No grand celebration. We were all too emotionally exhausted for that, but something important had been restored. Truth had prevailed over influence. 2 weeks later, the investigation confirmed everything in my report. Pierce was permanently removed. 6 months after that, similar investigations began at his previous employers. His carefully constructed empire of intimidation crumbled completely. Some might call what I did revenge. I call it justice. My methodology was simple. I'd kept records of everything from day one, not just documents, but testimonials, time-stamped communications, and detailed impact analyses. While Pierce focused on cultivating powerful friends, I built a network of truth-tellers. When he struck at me, he had no idea I'd connected with his previous victims, regulatory authorities, investors, and press. Pierce believed his downfall was the file I left on his desk. In reality, that was merely the first domino. His true downfall was assuming that power could permanently silence truth. As for me, I still lead my team. I still keep meticulous records. And I still believe that in corporate America, your most powerful weapon isn't connections or charisma. It's integrity, backed by irrefutable evidence. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more corporate justice tales. Have you ever stood up to a workplace bully? Share your experience in the comments below. And remember, sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about setting things right.